Welcome back to Life in Review. I'm Josefa Salinas, your host. Well, if you've followed me over the years, you've definitely heard my friend here before. He is the mayor of our great city, Mayor Eric Garcetti, with us this morning. Good morning, Mayor. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be with you.
Oh, it is so good to have you here. And you and I have been together so many times and so many different conversations. But I don't think either of us ever anticipated a conversation like this. But I'm so glad that we have the kind of friendship where we can have this conversation. And luckily, I have opportunity to reach out to the community. And I did that yesterday when I got the call that we would be able to speak with each other. And I said, okay, let me reach out and see what kind of things people want to talk about. And within less than 24 hours, I had over 57 people immediately hit me up with questions and things that they would like me to ask. So I'm going to kind of consolidate them a little bit so that we're not asking the same questions over and over and over. But I can tell you at least 20 different people hit me up and said, how is the mayor himself doing? How is his family? How does he feel? And how does he relax amongst all this stress?
I don't know what relaxation is, certainly not in 2020, but thank you, Josefa, and thank you to your listeners for asking, because I think in the midst of all this, we've been so far away from each other. We've kind of lost a lot of our human connection and some of our, we dehumanize one another when we especially are in positions of power. Like some people lift you up unnecessarily, others tear you down unnecessarily, and we're just human beings. And, my family's doing well. My daughter is so resilient. My wife is so incredible and strong. So, one of the things I have is a prayer circle that I started. My wife actually put together for me at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis when I knew we were going to face so much suffering and death in our community. It's a group of pastors and rabbis and Islamic religious leaders, and they're amazing. So I don't think I'm resting a lot right now, but I'm trying to ground myself and really trying to meet this moment, because we can't afford to miss this moment. It's not how we wanted it to come, but it's the moment we've all been waiting for, and we better meet this moment strong.
Yeah, so many of us knew that a situation like this was coming, and we just didn't know how it was going to come or when it was going to come, but we all kind of knew it was on its way. All right, there's quite a few people who are asking questions. It's all about how we're going to move forward. So I'm going to look at Michelle Dumont here. She's a member of the board of directors of the Bilingual Foundation of the Arts, and she's sending this with deep appreciation and gratitude. She said she'd like to ask the mayor if he's committed to providing grants to a variety of longstanding nonprofits who represent the arts as a way to enrich the lives of the disenfranchised as we move forward.
100%, absolutely. In fact, one of the toughest things to do in a moment like this, when our economy is suffering, when our receipts are down, when we have a fiscal hole to fill, is to stretch and to try to reach out to put money where we need it to be, where the street is crying out for righting the wrongs of the past and to deal with racial injustice. But we said this has to be something shared. It has to come from the police department. It has to come from other departments, where we really invest in the idea of healing and hope and of racial justice. And so we're putting those plans together right now. We've committed about $250 million, of which at least $100 million will come from the police department, but also other sources of funding, to invest in summer jobs, to invest in arts and culture, to invest in healing. And I want to put that money in the hands of those who don't have the material benefits that other zip codes have. If we're not actually putting our money where our mouth is, this is a moment that was brought to us by horrible policing, and that we saw in Minneapolis, that we see too often on our streets. But it isn't just about policing. It's also about health and economy. It's about our souls and our spirits. And I absolutely think that our nonprofits who are out there aren't just beautifying the city with what they do. They're also healing the city. And if we can't figure out how to heal from this moment as well as to progress, we're going to, as I said before, miss this moment. So that will be a part of what we do. We're working with our Department of Cultural Affairs. Usually arts grants are funded by our hotel tax. So, think about this year, there's nobody staying at hotels.
Right.
So we have to be creative, but I will not let the arts fall off a cliff simply because of a bad budget year. We can't let certain entities take the brunt of a bad economy. If we don't live with art, we don't have our souls and we don't have our spirit, and we cannot heal, and we cannot learn the lessons of this moment too. So absolutely, that'll be a part of it.
Art Gomez says this is one of the greatest cities on the planet, and everybody said that. Every single person who emailed, even when they had a complaint, they all said they love L.A. So I wanted you to know that right away. He says, what can we do to keep the unity in our city and prevent history from repeating itself? After the 92 riots, there was federal funding for trade schools. I was one of those recipients, which gave me the opportunity to get out of the streets and begin my career. Now, 16 years later, working for this great city, I say free continued education for our youth is one of the answers. What do you think about that?
Art is exactly right. I mean, one of the proudest things that I've done as mayor, even though I don't control our community colleges, was to work to make community college free for 1 year. Then the state went for 1 year, then 2 years, and then the state went for 2 years. Now we're adding free buses on our dash service, free laptops for students, housing assistance. You know, there is no door more powerful to walk through than that of higher education. And it's also queuing up our young people to think about that. And for all the young people who might be listening today who are saying, oh, because of COVID-19, I'm going to delay a year, or I'm going to put off my dreams, don't. This has to be a part of what we put forward. And Art's right. It used to come from the federal government, the summer jobs programs that so many people started with. A lot of politicians who are running for president have talked about reducing student debt. If we don't put that at the front and center of our agenda, as we've done here in Los Angeles nationally, we're also going to miss this moment. But I do believe that LA is setting the pace, and LA College Promise is doing just that. Also, we don't have the numbers yet, but you know, when I started as mayor, we had 5,000 youth jobs for all of LA. We've increased that every year, and last year it was 20,000. We need to stretch even beyond that. This summer, we should have, you know, every youth in a zip code that doesn't have the same opportunities as across town. We should have employment for our young people to go, even in this tough environment, work for an entertainment company, work for government, work for, you know, a doctor's office, something that will open up her horizons and change her life forever, as well as deliver some money to her and her family.
Several people wrote and said that, you know, with all the loss of jobs and so many small businesses and some large businesses going out of business now because of this unprecedented recession that no one anticipated, but we're here, it's happening. What can we do for adults? There's a lot of focus on youth, but what about adults who maybe were at a job for 10 years and now they don't have a job, and they may have to retrain or rethink their direction and where they're going to go so that they can support their family. Are there any thoughts of maybe putting some kind of commission or something together to kind of see how we move forward and making sure that adults who need opportunities have the same things that we're providing to our young people?
Absolutely. It can't just be youth. We have so many primary caregivers. And by the way, this is disproportionately hit women. If you look at the unemployment statistics nationwide, first of all, LA is at 20% unemployment. I mean, an unthinkable number, the most in our lifetimes. And some estimated it went even higher than the Great Depression here at one point, about 27%. It is almost 50% higher for women. We need to get our schools back, by the way, safely, even with COVID-19, so that we can not disproportionately put the impact of COVID-19 economically on the back of women caretakers at home. But yes, we are looking at not only those places that are hiring in the midst of the pandemic, and you can check it out at coronavirus.lacity.org. We have a jobs section where people can get training and can get hired right now. But we also have to think about the future jobs coming out of this crisis. I'm calling on a nationwide infrastructure package, just like we passed with Measure M, where we're building out our rapid transit system, 15 new lines. We need to make sure there's going to black and brown communities, into the building trades who are making commitments. I talked to the head of the carpenters. They're like, train me as many people as you want, and I will take them and put them in union jobs. That is a career, not just a one-off. And we have to look at those industries that are the signature industries of our town. So we started something called the Evolve Entertainment Fund to get diverse faces into the entertainment industry, and not just with, you know, internships that are about fetching coffee, but learning how to be cinematographers and scoring music and doing the things that will allow them to be the great creators tomorrow. And we're doing that with the tech industry too, with something called Pledge LA, where over 100 companies and funders have pledged to hire black and brown Angelenos, diverse background, and to make sure that they're in positions where they can one day run companies themselves. So it has to be the short term. You know, there's jobs available right now, and again, coronavirus.lacity.org. Click on the jobs link and go to that, as well as planning for the next 5 and 10 years so that people can not just have a job that gets them out of today, but a career that sets them up for tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, I know the elephant in the room is definitely how we're going to move forward with working with the police force, changing the image, working better with the community. So many people had questions with regard to that, but almost everybody wants to know, how will we create a healthy, dignified, positive, trusted relationship? And thank you, Armando Lawrence, for asking that. for everyone to be able to really work together in the future? And how do we go about listening to what the police have to say? Because there are two sides to every story. There might be a chance for us to have open dialogue about maybe what the police see that the community needs to do, and then what the community would like to see from the police officer. And I can tell you, in my community, I can't even tell you the name of one single police officer in this area, and that's a shame. I should know who the guys are who are patrolling around this area. I should know them. They should know me.
Yep, that's right. Everybody should know Josefa, by the way,
Oh.
because your life will be enriched. But you're right, and we can't always put that on the shoulders of our police officers. It's the model that we've put forward for too long. And there's some great examples in LA that I believe are the future of policing, but there's still a lot of work to do. And this conversation breaks my heart so often, too, because I've been there with the immigrant parents of a police officer who's been shot and killed. I've been there when people have saved somebody from sexual trafficking or domestic violence. I know why police officers who want to be heroes become police officers. I also know that talking to any black man in Los Angeles, from a council member down to a youth who's just starting out their life, they've had some negative interaction where they feel like power was exercised against them simply because of the color of their skin. And if we can't bridge this gap, it will define how hopeful our public safety is in the future. So let me tell you a good model that I hope in the next month or two to start growing and expanding. It's called the Community Safety Partnership, and it started in our public housing developments, places like Nickerson Gardens, where it was some of the toughest areas of town with the highest homicide rates. And we realized if you put police officers in there just for a year or two and then cycle them out, you're right. They're never going to get to know your name. You're never going to get to know their name. They're going to be responding to calls all the time, and it's an outside force inside your community, essentially. So the new model was to put officers there for 5 years and to put more officers there than the usual assignment so that they could spend a lot of their time not just responding to calls, but knocking on doors, going to barbecues, meeting with people, getting to know the pastors in the area, the youth programs, and play basketball with the kids, have the summer programs co-run with police officers. And to me, it has been a life-changing model. And you look at the stats, it has been across the board successful in bringing down crime, but also reducing incidents of police, misconduct, where people feel like they're being stereotyped by the police department. I think that should be the cornerstone of the future LAPD, while we also look at maybe removing some of the responsibilities we put on police officers and putting them on other people's shoulders. Intervening with somebody who is homeless on the streets shouldn't always be a police officer. Somebody with a mental health problem, as long as there's no violent thing that is imminently going to happen, let's get professional mental health workers in there who can stay with somebody and over time help them with what the needs are. And instead, we've just in the past pressed a button and said, well, send the cops. And we see how often, even though many of them do an amazing job, we've also seen the abuses that come or the lack of training that comes and the tragedies that have come. So to me, it's exactly right. If we can get to a place where we know who our police officers are, where we don't just look to police officers, but we have other public safety interventionists, folks who have been former gang members who now do youth programs, those people can be peacemakers just as much as somebody with a badge, and I think we need to make that investment.
Yeah, mental health workers, social workers, grid programs, all of these things might be able to take some of that weight off of the police force and let them work on what they should be working on, as well as getting more involved with the community. Now, another thing that people are worried about is when they're watching the rest of the country, and we're all seeing the news, and there's fake news, there's this news, there's that news. Nobody knows what to believe. But it does appear as though as things are opening up, that the virus seems to be spiking again. There was one example in the paper today where a group of people went to a birthday party at this bar, and now 19 of them all tested positive, and like 9 of the staff at the place have all tested positive for COVID. So how are we going to, as things are opening up, because Disneyland's starting to open, Universal Studios, bars, restaurants, the beaches, summer is here in LA. How are we going to protect each other? And are we going to continue to require the masks? Is it going to be a suggestion? And then will anybody really be looking to see if people are following the direction of the guidelines that are given?
Absolutely. Well, as a reminder to everybody, we might be done with COVID-19. I mean, psychologically, we're just exhausted by it, but it's not done with us, and it can still kill. I lost a cousin in my family just 2 weeks ago to COVID-19. One of my coworkers just lost his father, who thought he was over it, and then suddenly, within 27 hours, was gone. This is serious stuff. And so the only way we can save lives and try to make sure we save livelihoods is our own behavior of wearing those masks, and I do not see that requirement going away anytime soon. So I think that will be with us for months. Keeping our physical distancing, staying at home, and if you can, working from home, and washing your hands. Those things, together with the work that we're doing to make sure we have robust contact tracing, the free testing that we have for folks with and without symptoms, that's our arsenal now. We can't stay locked up forever. We need to see our economy move forward. But if we see cases spike, we're going to have to close things down again. And that's really in all of our hands. So when you feel like, hey, I'm so sick of it, I need to see 20 people in a barbecue in my backyard, don't do it. It's not allowed, and you shouldn't do that, because it's not just about you. It's about those people and the people they touch and the people they touch, and you're going to kill somebody using that. If you don't wear your mask, same thing. If you're coming into direct contact with people, it's not cool not to wear a mask. A mask is an expression of that you care about your neighbors, you care about your family, you care about your coworkers. So it's so important to continue doing that. We've been so strong. We saved, as one study said, millions of lives, literally, by early intervention, but let's not get exhausted. We have to see this through, and it's still going to be months before we have a vaccine or a drug that can treat this effectively. And so in the meantime, it really is on all of us. Take the guidance, again, at coronavirus.lacity.org if you're opening up a business, to make sure you do it carefully. And please wear your mask. Please wash your hands. Please make sure that you keep your physical distance, because it will save lives.
Now, one last thing, but I know you're busy and you got to get out of here, but so many people asked about the question of our homeless population here in LA, and how we're dealing with the virus with the homeless population, and then the problem of this growing homeless population, how we think we might move forward. Jackie Schabel, lots of people here asking questions about this and wanting to know. San Diego has done a couple of very interesting things. They work together with the private sector to build barracks-like shelters that housed almost 1,000 people for about $4.5 million. Are these the kinds of things that we might be thinking about moving forward on maybe some abandoned city property, or some of these buildings that are around that nobody's in? Is there a way to move and create housing for homeless and then provide services there that can help so many of our homeless people that need it?
Well, we're not only thinking about it, we're doing it. We have, in the last 18 months, we will have opened up 2,200 new beds in those pop-up shelters, existing buildings, span tents, shipping containers. It's the fastest pace in the country. And then COVID-19 hit, and what I said 2 years ago, that we needed a FEMA-level response to homelessness, but I couldn't get the federal government to pay to take people off the streets. Thank God, our prayers were answered, that they did say we could house people in. We opened up all of our rec centers and put 1,000 people in just 3 or 4 weeks in there, and then more than 2,000 more in hotels and motels that federal government will reimburse us 3/4. So we've, together with the county, housed 6,000 people just from COVID-19, and another 2,200. And remember, these beds in these shelters can recirculate, so it's just 2,200 at a time, but then it's 4,400 and 6,600 and 8,800. So even though we saw numbers very sadly go up again by about 13-14% in January, I fully believe that work, together with an eviction moratorium, has taken more people off the streets in a shorter amount of time than we've ever done in Los Angeles. Now, looking around, it's still terrible out there, but I'm so committed to keeping the feet to the fire of the federal government, of our state. And this year, we will spend $679 million on housing people. We used to spend $12 million when I first became mayor. And to what I'm saying to the state and to the federal government is, let's make sure those folks that are in a hotel right now or a shelter right now don't go back on the street. So I'm working together with the county for a plan to house those 6,000 people, not just temporarily, but permanently. And if we get that engine going, I think we're going to see years where we finally see homelessness coming down, together hopefully with national leadership to make housing a right and not just kind of an afterthought. That's how we're going to get there.
Now, in conclusion, with all of these questions and thoughts and concerns that everyone has, how do we work with you as a community? How do we work with you to help move this city forward to make sure that it doesn't explode or implode, either one of those words, that we all grow together? What can we do as citizens to be a part of the growth?
So we have to recognize this is all of our common work. Demand City Hall, demand our county board of supervisors, demand our state and federal government step up and do their parts. But this is also, if we want to end racism, for instance, what do we do in our workplace, in our neighborhood, with our own behavior and in our own community? What can we do to offer summer jobs to young people? When the city sets up this program, anybody listening who wants to hire a summer youth and can help pay them $2,000 that could transform their lives, and then we'll do programming around that to teach them life skills, step up and help. Anybody who wants to volunteer, go to lamayor.org and sign up for our volunteer corps and get out there and help people who are right now needing a COVID test, or folks who are looking for a mentor, or people who want to say, look, racism and health disparities and economic suffering predated all of this stuff. So now is the moment for each one of us to stand up. And don't just hit the streets, which has been beautiful to see, but then get engaged and involved. Learn how a city budget's put together. Figure out a way to advocate for more. Get involved this fall with Schools and Communities First, a state ballot, a measure that would finally fund our schools at a proper level instead of warehousing poverty and trauma there. So vote, fill out the census forms, get engaged, volunteer, and if you want to help in any way, like I said, we have so many ways to plug you in directly, and there's no better feeling when you want to fight for racial justice than to work for it with your hands on an issue. And you can go to lamayor.org, sign up for the Volunteer Corps, and we will put you to work and make history together.
Absolutely, and I look forward to it. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with the audience. Everybody kept saying, when are you going to talk to him? When are you going to talk to him? I said, hold on. He's really busy, but I know he'll make time for his friend Josefa. So
always.
Thank you
always,
so much.
Always.
Thank
and
you
just
so
let
much.
me know when you want me back, okay?
Oh,
Thank you, dear
absolutely,
friend.
absolutely. And
Okay.
continued success. And just know that I am here for you. You know this.
Thank you.
Whatever
Always.
myself or my listeners or my airwaves can do to help this city that I love so much, we're here.
Thank you. Strength, love, and justice, and un abrazo fuerte.
Gracias. Adios,
Okay.
hermano.
Cuídate. Bye-bye.
Bye. What a great morning we've had today. I'm Josefa Salinas. Until we get together again, stay strong, stay focused, and most of all, stay informed. I'll catch you next time right here on Life in Review. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers, the uncles, the grandfathers, the brothers, the cousins, the friends who fill that role every single day. You're so needed in our lives. We can't do it without you. We need you. And to my dad, who I know is looking down on me right now, listening and smiling, thank you so much for the guidance, love, and knowledge that you gave me all those years. Man, I miss you.